Hey everybody, welcome to Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli. I wanted to pay a little homage to Norm MacDonald, who unfortunately died earlier today. Norm MacDonald, for those of you who don't know, was an extremely underrated comedian. Canadian, funny as hell. And I don't know if I can fill quite 10 minutes on him, but I will tell you this at the very beginning. As a person who has done comedy for 12 years, off and on, and has come to understand what it takes to be successful in the business of comedy. I've gotten to know some people who are successful in it. I've got to know some people who were minimally successful, I would say. Some have made their livings at it. Some have made partial livings at it. Some have done terribly at it. I've met people all along the spectrum. I can tell you, it is not an easy business to do well. People often tell you before you go on stage or do a gig, say, be funny. No, you be funny. No, it really is. I never understood the writing aspects of it until I really got into it. Yeah, you can go up and be funny, and sometimes you'll hit. But the Robin Williamses out there of this world, of this universe, are extremely few and far between. Robin Williams could go up there and just be funny. Maybe he was coked up out of his mind, but still, a naturally funny, with that much intelligence and knowing where to funnel it at the right time, having timing, having impressions, voices, knowing how to write jokes. The Robin Williamses who could just be funny are extremely rare. Norm MacDonald was not such a comic as 99% of them are, or are not. Norm MacDonald was a writer and a comics comic. For those of you that don't know him, like I said, he was born in Canada. I just had, and feels really serendipitous. I just read his autobiography about a year ago called It's Kind of a Funny Story. And I think it came out in 2017, right before Louis C.K.'s, let's see, how shall we put it, Transgressions came out into the public, because Louis C.K. did the forward to it, and it was very funny as well. And you know that these guys had to do what they had to do. I'm not talking about Louis C.K., I'm talking about comics. But coming up in the 70s and 80s, when comedy was starting to swing, when the Eddie Murphys and the Jerry Seinfelds of the world were starting to get a foothold, and there were then all these other guys. There were the Bill Burrs and the Louis C.K.'s and the Doug Stanhopes and the Joe Rogans. And Norm MacDonald was in that group of guys. And Norm MacDonald came up through New York. He started in Canada and got a few gigs in the middle of the country, like the Midwest of Canada, the Midwest of the United States, and then he somehow hit with Saturday Night Live. I believe he was on Saturday Night Live in 91 or 92, and then, as many of you know, or many of you don't know, he did the news on Saturday Night Live. Now, let me tell you a little something about Saturday Night Live in the early 90s. It was an absolutely stacked, ridiculously stacked lineup. You had David Spade, you had Adam Sandler, Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, who else? Phil Hartman, I believe, was still on the show. It was an amazing, amazing cast. And I'm probably missing all kinds of people. People that were barely on the outskirts, the fringe of the show. Amazing comedians that could barely even get a sketch shown, or even written to get to the writing room was really hard. Sarah Silverman, Chris Rock. Louis C.K. often wrote for the show, but was never on it. The early 90s were an extremely tough time to get on Saturday Night Live, and that's how Norm MacDonald got wedged his foot in the door, was being an amazing writer, because he wrote many sketches for all those other amazing comedic actors to do. And as you probably also know, Norm MacDonald was also doing the news at the time, because they didn't really need a crazy guy or a guy who could act or do voices or do any of that improvisational type of stuff. They just needed a guy who could deliver the news in a hilarious way. Now, a lot of people may know this, some of you may not know this. Norm MacDonald just hammered the hell out of the OJ thing in 1994 and 95. Eventually lost his job for it, because, and that's, to me, I respect that. Maybe I didn't respect at the time what he was doing, because it was sometimes getting old. You watch the show, go, here goes Norm. He's going to start on OJ again. And the jokes were hilarious. Or like, I remember when OJ was acquitted, and Norm read the news, and it was like, he goes, it is now official. Murder is now legal in the state of California. I mean, it's a horrible joke, but it was way probably most of the country felt, especially kind of a folksy old guy like Norm. And I know I refer to him first name. I never met the guy, but I felt like I got to know him in this amazing autobiography. Well, it wasn't even really an autobiography. It was a fictional story with a huge autobiographical feel to it. I mean, he talks about possibly getting sexually assaulted as a child, but it's written so well that we really don't know. The main part of the story is a guy who is just trying to make it in show business, and all the pitfalls he has to deal with, and all the crazy people he has to deal with. And it's an amazing book. I highly suggest you read it if you can. Once again, it's called it's kind of a funny story. And it's now looking back and knowing the situation that Norm has faced. He was hiding or trying to keep out of the public that he had had cancer for 9 years. So he was 61 when he died today. So he'd had cancer apparently since age 52, long before he wrote this book, because the book was written in 2017. So he had cancer 5 years before he even wrote this book. And maybe this was kind of a goodbye. You know, I figured if, hey, I'm dying, and that's actually mentioned in the book too. So he probably maybe knew the severity of his cancer, or maybe he understood that, you know, life doesn't last forever anyway. So he wanted to make sure he wrote a good book on his way out. I also have a lot of respect for anyone that did it and got into it, and especially with the backwoods type of, you know, this wasn't a guy from the city. This was a guy from rural, I almost call it Canada, and broke his way into one of the best lineups in the history of one of the funniest shows ever. He was almost looked, and he was perfect for the news because he looked like a newsman, and with that dry wit and amazing writing power, he could slide in jokes that would have you on the floor. He was truly a comics comic, and I think that's why a lot of people in the public didn't maybe see him as funny or maybe even know who he was. But I keep thinking of moments, just like on his show. Even he had the Norm Macdonald show, and he'd just bring his friends on, and it was kind of brutal, but I think it was perfect for a Norm Macdonald type of show, because it was during COVID. They taped a lot of the show, so there was no one in the audience. There's like one person laughing. And when you do comedy, when you've done an open mic and you've kind of hit the grind sometimes, you understand how brutal this business is, and how to get good at it, and how to get funny, and how to learn how to write, and how to learn how to perform. You will go up dead last at an open mic and tell a joke in front of 3 drunks and pray for them to laugh so you feel good at 1:30 in the morning as you do your shot of whiskey and get into your car to leave and feel good about yourself. That's what it took, and that's what it takes. But I call Norm Macdonald a comics comic just because of the way he wrote. He's the guy where the comics would be laughing, and maybe the audience either didn't get it, or didn't know what it took to get it, or didn't know what the amazing craft that almost like a magic trick that he had just pulled off. There was something else I wanted to say about him that was pretty important, I thought. The neighbors are arguing, and I feel weird. Or at least it sounds like an argument. Anyway, Norm Macdonald will probably have said something funny about this as well. Oh, the roasts. Okay, that's what I meant to mention. Norm Macdonald also did a lot of the Comedy Central roasts, and if you know anything about roasts, they're generally very dirty. Even Lenny Bruce joked about how disgusting the roasts would be back in the 50s and 60s, and then we're going to give the proceeds from the absolute scatological things we're saying, pornographic things we're saying back in the 50s and 60s, and giving all the money to a charity, like a children's charity. It was funny that he kind of saw that. But Norm Macdonald, this showed you his writing prowess, that he would enter this pit of just filth at a roast and do completely clean comedy. Completely clean roast of I mean, say stupid things, but they were just funny. It's like, you know, this guy hoots like an owl. This guy soars like an eagle. Yeah, I think this guy's act is for the birds. Now, I say it, but Norm Macdonald said it in that setting. People lost their minds because nobody expected A, for it to be clean, and then B, for it just to be a stupid, funny joke. And he would do that in the entire set. Not one foul word out of his mouth, not even a foul thought in his brain or anyone else's brain, just clean jokes that were landing because he knew what to do. He knew how to write them and he knew how to deliver them. So it's a big loss in the comedy community, obviously. It's not a personal loss to me, but I hope if you get to check him out, especially his book, and understand the type of writer he was, he's an amazing writer, go check it out. Thanks for listening, you guys. Love your comedians, love yourselves, and raise a glass of Canadian whiskey to Norm MacDonald. Thanks, you guys. Bye.